Hi, in this lecture, I am going to talk about loop patterns. What are the loop patterns? Well, you have seen a lot of loops already. You have seen the counting loop, where we count how many items in the list or how many characters in the string, like the length example we did earlier. In the counting loop, I have an accumulator. Counting loop is a accumulator. I have the accumulator and update the accumulator for every item in the list. You can also work with this with a character or text string for char in message. This is a counting loop, and for that we can even write a function for it. Notice that this function will work for list and string data. Why? Because it's the same. This could be a string or this could be a list. It will work for either one. The program is the same for both of them. Summing loop. This is the accumulator that sums the total. In this case, I have a total equals 0 and accumulate the total using the item found in the list. And we can also do the accumulator with string, as I talked about in the last lecture. The summing loop pattern works for the string also. And if it works for string, it also works for list. I start with an empty list, and this is an empty list, and I can add items to the list by adding a list item, and that's why I need a bracket around the item to make it as a list. Finding a minimum, I can use to find the minimum in the list. I will iterate every item in the list and find out where the item is smaller than the smallest that I'm tracking. If it is, then I set the smallest to the item. When the loop finishes, I have the smallest. Notice that I set smallest to none initially. The reason is, in the beginning, there's no smallest number yet. And that is why if smallest is none in here, if smallest is none, you can also use if smallest equal to none instead of is, or item is less than smallest, then I have the smallest item. So first time through, smallest is none, it will set the smallest to the first item in the list. Second time through, it will check whether the item is less than the smallest, and so forth. I can do the same thing finding the max. Set the largest to none, and if largest is none or item greater than largest, then I set the largest to item. The largest is just a variable keep tracking of the largest item I found so far. So by looking at these pattern, let's write a program that prompts user to input student exam grade. When user enter -1, it terminates the input, and the program calculates the min, max, and average of all the grades entered. It displays the min, max, and average grade. This is very similar to one of the programs we did in the last lecture, except I want to add the min, max, and the minimum and maximum grade. So let's try that. We're going to write this from scratch again. Um, in the previous one, we have a total equals 0. We set total the accumulator. We have a count equals 0 for number of grade. Done equal to false. and while not done, then I want to get the grade from the user. Float input, enter student grade negative to exit. And if grade is greater than equal to 0, then I want to increment the total, the accumulator. This is from the last exercise we did, programming exercise, and increment the counter by 1, else done is true, and the loop terminate. When the loop terminate, I can print out, for example, number of grade and print the average. This is from the last example we did. So the average will be total divided by count. So let's run this again. And then we're going to add the min and max, say 100, 90, and 80, and minus 1. So, number of grade, I spelled it wrong, is 3, and the average is 90. So now I want to add to finding the minimum and maximum. How do I add? Well, using the pattern we did earlier, I can have let's just say using the largest equal to none and smallest equal to none. So I don't have a largest or smallest yet. In here, now that I have a grade, I can check whether the largest, if largest is none, or largest is less than the item. Or maybe I do this, if item is greater than largest. So the current item is bigger than largest, then I find a larger grade. So largest equal to grade. If smallest is none, or item is less than smallest, then I find a smaller grade, a smaller value. Notice that I need to have an if, two individual if, because the largest and smallest are two independent conditions. I cannot use if-else statement or if-else if. This had to be an individual if. Look like I'm sorry. I'm thinking I talk about item, it should be a grade. The squiggly line help you identify some typo, as you can see here. So let's add the let's see, minimum grade is the smallest. Maximum grade is the largest. So let's run this program. And I'm going to use the same input, 100, 90, and 80 minus 1. Number of grades, 3. Average is 90. Minimum is 80. And the maximum is 100. As you can see here. Write a program that outputs all the factor excluding one of a number. The program should prompt the user to enter a number and then output all the factor of that number. For example, if user enters 6, then the program outputs 2, 3, 6 in one line. Use comma to separate the factor. I want you to take a look at this exercise and think about what kind of loop you will use and how to display a string and output one line that is comma separated. I will do this during a lecture.